Who have your Bibles, I want to call your attention to Mark chapter number 2. And if you're kind of taking notes, you want to write down Mark chapter number 2 and go all the way to verse number 12. But today I'm only read to verse 5. Today I'm starting and we're starting a family series. Everybody shout family. One of the things that I realize is that Satan has been really busy in the area of families. And we want to, of course, give you some helpful tools to help us out. And so all month long, we're asking you to invite your family to church. Hopefully you come to church, but your family will come to church as well. We're tagging this series, Don't Throw It Out. Everybody shout, don't throw it out. Don't throw it out. Some of what worked for them can work for us. Some of what worked back then can work right now. Right? And so we want to make certain that we give you some of the stuff not to throw out. And today I want to focus in on faith. Let the church shout faith. Don't throw out faith. It's Black History Month. We'll talk about that. But one of the things that we recognize is that faith has carried us this far. Faith in God. And so we want to make certain that we focus in on that today. And this text is the text that the Lord led me to. There are myriad of books that and passages that we could have looked at, but Mark chapter number 2 was the text that the Lord laid upon our heart. And somebody said, well, that ain't directly talking about families. I would argue that the Bible is a family book from Genesis to Revelations. You want to know what God is doing? God is attempting to win his family back into right fellowship with him. And so every book, every passage is pointing us back into healthy, holy family in Jesus Christ. And so I want to look at this text. Here's what the text says. It says, and again, he entered Capernaum after some days, and it was heard that he was in the house. Come on, Pastor Duke. He was in the house. Immediately, many gathered together, so there was no longer room to receive them, not even the door. And he preached the word to them, and they came to him bringing a paralytic who was carried by 4 men. Please turn that down. Please turn that down. By 4 men, and when they could not come near to him because of the crowd, they uncovered the roof where he was. So when they had broken through, they let down the bed on which the paralytic was lying. When Jesus saw their faith, when Jesus saw their faith, not just your faith, but it says what? Their faith. Their faith. He said to the paralytic, son, your sins are forgiven you. Everybody shout once again, don't throw it out. Don't throw it out. Don't throw out faith. You may be seated even in the presence of the Lord. I want to talk to you, family. Don't throw out faith, all right? Y'all have some of everything in that house, don't you? People, possessions, property, right? Somebody says junk. Pets, and even plans to take your family to higher heights in life, right? But I'll tell you one thing that appears to be missing in your family and seems to be missing in your household, and that's faith. I'm not saying that y'all don't believe that there is a God or there isn't one, but when we look at your life and we look at how it's functioning, faith is not an active participant in your life and in your family's life. Some of us are what one scholar calls practical atheists. Practical atheism, it speaks of one who acknowledges that there is a God, but when you look at your life and when you look at the function and the daily behaviors of your life, that doesn't appear to be evident that there's a God at all. I know this is true in the context of your family because if we can be honest about it, we don't pray together. We don't worship together. We don't serve together. We don't even communicate about God in the context of family. And I know there are several contributing factors, aren't there? Perhaps it's busyness. Pastor, I would talk more about God and we would talk more about faith, but we're just too busy. And perhaps it's not even busyness. Maybe it's just a lack of interest. We got time. To be honest, ain't nobody got time for that once we leave church. Because after all, Sunday morning is the day, and I believe that's God's day. And Monday through Saturday, that's my day. Those are my time. That is, maybe it's busyness for some, maybe it's a lack of interest for others. But the truth of the matter is, we can be honest about it. As we look at our daily lives and as we look at our families, faith is seemingly missing. In 1967, Dr. Martin Luther King wrote these words. Notice what he says. He says, "There is nothing new about God. What is new is we now have resources to get rid of him." I like that. Matter of fact, let me replay that and say it all over again, because some of y'all didn't hear that. Notice what he says, and I hope you get it. He says, there's nothing new about God. He says, what is new? Now we have resources to get rid of them. Some of us, when we didn't have anything, that's the point. God, I need you. When we were not working, when we were not, when we were not, at a place where we were doing as well as some of us are doing right now. Some of us, we would call on God. Lord, we need you. And now God has given us opportunity. God has blessed us. And now some of us live as if we don't need God. Can I remind you that faith has always been the backbone of the African American family? When we didn't have anything else, Deacon Howard, in this country, we had our faith in God. I agree with Dr. Dean Trujillo when he says that not believing in God is not an African trait at all. Atheism and agnosticism is something that we picked up on these western shores. Black people have always had a high view of God, even in the face of low-down circumstances. It's perhaps why James Weldon Johnson wrote these words. Do you remember them? He says, God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou has brought us thus far, that thou has by thy might, if it was God that carried us through where we are right now. I hope you get it. I'm trying to paraphrase, but we've come from a history where we put our faith in our God not in a low place, but in a high place, because we recognize that we don't make it through the Atlantic slave trade. We don't make it through Jim Crow. We don't make it by ourselves. We made it because of our faith and our trust in God. And if I could say it, that if we're going to make it through this period, can I tell you what we're going to need? Our faith and our trust in the Lord. Let me clarify. When God made family, no matter what race you are, I want you to understand that he wanted all of us to invite him in, not kick him out. Maybe there's some tension in our families right now because we've kicked him out. And the emphasis of this sermon is to invite him back in. How can my family thrive? Invite him back in. Pastor, me and my spouse, we got some challenges and there's some friction there. Invite him back in. Pastor, I'm about ready to strangle this child. Invite somebody. Don't do it. Don't do it. Lord, please. This passage is a passage which highlights 4 friends who have a paralytic friend that they want to take to go see Jesus. They had heard that about Jesus' miracles, and they had heard about the messages of Jesus, and they said, well, man, listen, if Jesus is in the city, let's go take our friend to go see him. 4 men come together to take this one paralytic friend to see Jesus with the hopes that Jesus would do something about his situation. Now, I like this because when the men get to the house where Jesus is, because the emphasis is these men, and I don't just want you to see them as men, I want you to see them as family. These men were taking their friend to see Jesus, and when they initially got there, they ran into some opposition. There was a crowd there. A lot of folk there, they couldn't get in the house. And you know how some of us, if there had been some of us, I'm about to leave today. It's just too crowded, right? But no, that's not what they did. They looked up on the roof. They said, wait a minute, nobody's on the roof. And so what they did was they were willing to literally get up on the roof and tear up the roof, right? I don't know whose house this was, but I would have been mad at Jesus. I'd have been mad at everybody that like, y'all cannot worship at my house no more, right? But they went up on the roof and they tore up the roof in order to lower their friend down. I'm going somewhere. And when they lowered their friend down, the emphasis is for them to get their friend to who? Jesus. Because if the situation is going to be better, he's got to get to Jesus, right? Got to get to Jesus. So they lowered him down, and Jesus looks at him, and Jesus says to them, wow, look at their faith. But the emphasis is on their faith. The man receives the healing, but if you got your Bibles open, the part of the text that I want you to underline is the part where it says their faith. Jesus was pleased with their faith. All right? I want the church to shout their faith. Right? The emphasis is on what? Their faith. Right? The emphasis is on their faith. And I think this is important because I think this is a word for modern day families. Right? That God don't just want me to believe, he wants us to believe. He don't just want you saved, he wants your entire family saved. Their faith. Here's the big idea for those of you who are taking notes. I want you to get this. Here's the big idea of the day's lesson, and it is simply this. When we believe together, we can be blessed forever. That's the simple point that I want you to walk away with, right? Matter of fact, it sounded so good. Let me see if I can replay it, and everybody repeat after me. Say, come on. Number one, let's go. 1, 2, 3. When we believe together, we can be what? Blessed together. All right? When we believe together, we can be what? Blessed together. I don't know about y'all, but that shouted me. That one little statement, it shouted me because I'm in the season where I don't just want to be blessed. I want my whole family blessed. I want my wife to be blessed. I want my child to be blessed. I want everybody in my family to be blessed. I know you convinced yourself that your faith, that God is only concerned about you and God only wants to uplift you. But maybe God is saying in this season, what I'm doing is I'm lifting you up so that I can use you, watch this, to be a blessing to the folk that are connected to you. I want everybody in my family blessed. He ain't come to church with me today. He missing out on his blessing. Maybe God sent you here, Lord, have mercy, to intercede on their behalf. Lord, don't give up on them. Am I preaching to somebody? They might be at home, Lord, have mercy, but don't you give up on them. Don't you get to a point in place where you think, Lord, that this is just about you. No. That somebody ought to be able to testify. I'm coming in here today, Lord, have mercy, with prayers. Lord, bless my family. I got a husband and he ain't studying God, but I'm praying for him. I got a wife and she ain't. I got children who ain't thinking about you, but I want everybody in my family to be blessed. Because if they're blessed, there'll be a better blessing to you. Y'all will catch that when you get home. Well, here's the thing. Let's wrestle with this. I promise you, I'm not going to try to hold you too long. How are we blessed forever? By believing together. How are we? That's the question I want to raise. How are we blessed forever? By believing together. There's several movements I want to give you. Number one, write this down. Here's how we're blessed. Number one, I want you to get this. Movement number one, we get a hope beyond paralyzing conditions. All right? We get a hope beyond paralyzing conditions, right? We get a hope. Man, my family is jacked up. When we believe together, right? We get it. Everybody shout, we. I'm tired of operating with me. Because I don't want to be in this season the only one who can believe God in the face of paralyzing circumstances. Y'all hear what I'm saying? We get a hope beyond what? Paralyzing conditions. I want you to see it in the text. Obviously, when you look at it, could you imagine the men? They would go see their paralyzed friend, or shall I say their differently able friend often. Notice the language that I gave you. I was intentional about that. because one of my female colleagues has been challenging me to shift my language when it comes to talking about those who have physical handicaps. She contends that we ought to use language that doesn't limit their humanity, but we ought to use language that uplifts their humanity. Did you hear what I said? I didn't say disabled. I said differently what? Able. See what I'm saying? Right? This, I think, is important because I think this kind of thought or philosophy would actually work in the context of family. As family, we all have challenges, right? You have challenges. I have challenges. But maybe one of the things that we can do, if we take the philosophy of my colleague, one of the things that we can do is in this season is learn how to see the value in people despite their challenges. You are good at pointing out challenges. You can't do this. You can't do that. Some of us are good. That's what you do. That's all you do is point out what they can't do. And the question becomes, can you see the value despite their challenges, despite what they can't do? No one is great at everything, but we're all good at something. I'm preaching better than you responding. And what you're going to have to learn how to do, if God is going, watch this, use you to be a blessing to your family, is you got to learn how to see the value in them. Mama, daddy, parents in the building, every time you talk to your child in this new season, Lord, they don't need you to tell them what they ain't doing. Some of them already know. You've done that already. Let's try another way. What are they doing, right, that you can celebrate? I'm not saying ignore their dysfunction, but I'm saying in this season, let's try something different. Let's try to point out what they can do well. Let's begin to get a new perspective of who they are. Okay, y'all not there. Maybe she's not the best cook, bro. And if you sit next to that person, look straight ahead. She ain't the best cook, but maybe she's a hard worker. Can we celebrate that? All right. Maybe he doesn't make a whole bunch of money. Right? Got to make this money. Got to do this, right? Maybe he doesn't make a whole lot of money, but if something breaks in that house, at least he knows how to fix it. And guess what? That's going to save you money. I hope y'all see what I'm doing here, right? Y'all see that? Maybe they are not good in this subject, but maybe we can celebrate the fact that they're good in that subject. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Now, while I'm not saying that you ought to settle for less, we must learn to celebrate what people can do, right? We must learn how to celebrate the good things that they can do. I know you struggle in that area, but I'm not going to focus just on that in this season. I want to celebrate the things that you do well. Here's the weekly assignment that I have for every family in the building, and I need you to write this down, and I need you to actually do it. Everybody shout, do it. Just do it. I want you to do this. I want you to find at least one or several people in your family, those who are in your house, and I want you to figure out one thing that they do well. Are y'all listening to me? No, this is a sign. If it's just one thing, find out one thing. And what I want you to do, I want you to celebrate what they do well. I want it to be intentional about what they do well. I want you to celebrate. I want you to be intentional about celebrating. Maybe it's a card. Hey, man, I noticed that, you've been trying. I noticed that this is something. I know that I'm often, bad on you. But today, just out of nowhere, right? They ain't here right now, right? And if they are, do it anyway, right? Or find something. I'm just giving you some ideas. Be creative. How can I celebrate what this person does well? Because they might have a handicap, but there's something about them that we can celebrate. Y'all hear what I'm saying? Here it is. Let's move on. That one point, the Lord gave me that revelation. I had to give it to you. But here's what's happening in the text. The text is these men, now they take their friend to see Jesus. And as they take their friend to now see Jesus, the thing that I love about it is Jesus celebrates their faith. Are you listening to me? Everybody shout their faith. Let me move on, because what I want you to see about this text that blesses me is that this faith that they have is also a hope. I want you to see this, a hope beyond their personal concerns. Now, I don't know about y'all, but this kind of blessed me. It really did. And the reason why it blessed me is because this act that they're engaged in is selfless. I already know some of you, if it had been you, and if it had been some of us, we'd have been carrying our friend, and somebody been like, because it's a lot of weight here, right? I mean, they got to carry him. Notice this, they got to carry him there, and then they get there, and then now they can't go through the regular door because there's so many crowds. Now they come up with this crazy plan to get up on the roof. That's more work. And I know somebody is wondering, what am I going to get out of this? You ever been there before? Right? And I love it because in this text, this thing was not, or this miracle was not about them. Right? It was bigger than them. Y'all hear that? And why do you mention this? Because I think one of the things that kills families is selfishness. I said all of that. I know you were looking for something deep. Right? No. I mean it. Selfish. Some of you, you don't want to admit it. I'm talking to you. Whoever you is. I'm going to just look at the back TV back there. Whoever you is. Right? I'm looking at the TV. I ain't looking at you. No, Pastor, you was looking at me. And then I'm looking where? At the TV. But the truth of the matter is, TV, you are selfish. Yes, you are. You own everything. You don't even realize a lot of the stuff you do, right? How you operate, how you think. At the end of the day, it's all about you. I agree with Dean Trulier when Dean Trulier says that the idol god of the 21st century is not a golden calf. He says the idol god of the 21st century is self. That's all we care about is self. Does that make any sense? And so what I want you to do in this season, watch this, in the context of family, because that self is destroying your family. Trust me, it is. You don't. Whenever you ever trying to talk to somebody, and when you're trying to talk to somebody, and this is a sign of self, you talk to them, they won't even let you get your point out because they so busy trying to get selfish. See what I'm saying? All right? Because he wasn't talking to me. Now I got you, right? Sometimes selflessness means you got to close your mouth and at least listen. Y'all don't help me in the building, all right? Another sign of selfish, you make decisions and you don't even consider how it impacts the folk around you, right? No, some of us, we don't care about the kids, right? I just got to date him. And you ain't thought about how him will impact your kids. Am I talking to somebody here? Come on now, I know who I'm talking to. Come on now. Y'all can ease up, right? Come on, look at your neighbor talking about he might be talking to you. Listen. All right? I got this opportunity, and I'm going to just pick up and leave, and I'm going to just pick up and go, right? And I'm just feeling it, and I'm feeling it, and it's all about you. And at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, how does this decision that I'm getting ready to make, how will it impact the folk around me? How does hanging out with them and spending all my time with them affect the folk in my house? Well, this is what I want to do, right? And this is how I feel. Well, when God connects you with a family, it's bigger than you. I hate to tell you that, but it is. And at some point, you got to start asking the question, Lord, before I make this move, how will it impact the people that you have connected to me? I tell you what, before you make the move, if you ask that question, it'll save a lot of heartbreak. Am I talking to somebody here today? I'll never forget it. Not long ago, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was in an Uber ride. And as I was in the Uber ride, I was being driven by an African brother from West Africa. And as I was driving with him, he and I exchanged, I could tell that there was an accent. And being in D.C., I know that there are a lot of African brothers in the area. And so I asked him, I said, well, where are you from? He said, man, I'm from Africa. And so I asked him, what? He said, West Africa, and told me where he was from. And I said, well, man, you know, what you doing here? He said, man, I've come here for greater opportunity. And he told me, he says, I'm out here working. I said, oh, man, that's amazing that God is blessing you, man. You know, I mean, you know, he was talking about some of the things he's doing. He says, wait, he says, God is not just blessing me. He said, God is blessing us. So I'm like, I only see you. He said, no, God is not just blessing me. God is blessing us. And then he began to give me a lesson. And anybody who's been around our African brothers, right? I'm not talking about African American. I'm talking about African brothers, right? Okay, and so you already know, right? And so he tells me, he says, see, you have to understand. He says that, in Africa, he says, we're not like you Americans. I'm already like, what you saying, bro? Right? He said, we're not like you Americans. He says, we're not taught to just look out for ourselves. He says, in Africa, we're taught to use our opportunities to look out for our village. He says, I'm not just here, watch this, looking out for myself. He says, I'm here, watch this, to do what I do, to send some back. Y'all see that? I'm here to do what I do to hopefully, watch this, set up other family members. Hope some others, he says, are going to come over to the States, right? I hope you see the point, though. He was not just looking out for himself. This African brother says that we do what we do. I do what I do. Why? Because, watch this, I'm looking out for the village. I don't know who I'm preaching to, but I want you to understand that you're not just your own. I know some of y'all, you know, I mentioned it last Sunday, and I said something about what Snoop and them did performing that thing, and I get it, some of you, well, I would have did it. Go and get your money. Go. Here's the thing that Snoop, here's what Rick Ross, here is what all of them have to understand. You don't just represent you. Am I preaching to somebody? We, especially in the African American community, because we are a very tribal people. Am I preaching to somebody here today? And so if all you're concerned about is how you can get your bag and how you can get your bag, then we're going to miss this time, because I'm going to tell you this. In this time, we're going to need all of us to come together, because there will have to be some protests. There will have to be some marching. They're going to have to be, and I'm prophetically speaking this, there are going to have to be some times when all of us come together to hit them where it hurts. Am I talking to somebody here today? I already told you, America was built on business, and the way in which you can get, Lord have mercy, their attention is start messing with their business. All right, you don't want us to work here. All right, you don't want to serve us, then we won't support it. That's the power, watch this, of the boycott that took place in Montgomery. Have I got a witness in the building? Black folk came together and said, all right, y'all don't want to listen to us. Y'all don't want to honor our humanity. We'll come together and we won't support y'all. And guess what? They ultimately listened to us, because if we come together, I'm talking about together, when we start marching together and when we put up our fists, Lord have mercy, and say, I'm black and I'm proud, or whatever you are, we come together, because it wasn't just all black folk either. I wish I had some of our Caucasian brothers, but when we all come together with a similar fight and a similar focus, we can knock Satan's kingdom down. And you can't be over here talking about, I don't care what y'all say, I'm going to get my money. Lord, if they throw a few $1 million at me, I'll perform. Haven't got a witness in the building, I'll be Sambo. No, that's not what we're looking for in this season. We've got to work together. That wasn't in my notes. I just thought I would. Yeah. I'm done. Lastly, we get a hope that brings us closer to the person of Christ. I'm trying to move through this sermon quick as I can. You know the blessing, and I'm done. These men, these friends, they take their friend to this house, they lower him down, and guess why they do so? It's going to be so simple, I'm almost embarrassed to preach it. They do it to get their friend to Jesus. That messed with me, right? And the reason why it messed with me, because the Lord said, Keelan, I want you to tell that church that as they operate in family, that their primary aim and their primary goal for existing in family is not just to make money together. Their primary goal, I hope I can say this, is not just to have sex. All right? Their primary goal is not just to get together, right, and get on social media and try to make folk think y'all a power couple. Look at us. The primary goal for every Christian family member is that we might do our job to get each other close to Jesus. Right? And getting close to Jesus is not just something that I do and that we do, watch this, by forcibly, pulling folk. No. You know how you really bring folk close to Jesus? Is how you live. Right? I mean, they were able to take him physically to Jesus, but obviously we are representatives to Jesus. And here's the reality, that it's how we live and how we operate, how we love and how we express ourselves in our daily lives that bring folk close to Jesus. And so some of us are trying to wonder, well, Pastor, I've been inviting, my family to church, but they won't come. And I'm going to tell you this. For some of us, you don't want to know why they didn't want to come? Because you go here. No, I'm being honest. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the TV. I'm talking to the TV. They are under the mindset, if you go there and you still act like you act. Some of you don't realize it. They glad when you go to church. Go on to church. Pastor Duke, yeah, preach, keep her as long as you can. Because when she's not here or when he's not here, I got some peace. I wish I had a witness in the building. Ain't nobody cussing at me and telling me what I ain't. I wish I had a witness in the building. But when they see God in you, when they see the Jesus in you, they like, wait a minute, something different, Lord. When they see you, Lord, have mercy, and you are loving them and pushing their lives to the next level, maybe there's something within them that say, wait a minute, if God can do it for you, if there's a change within you, Lord, have mercy. If it's making a difference in Keelan Do, just maybe, Lord, have mercy, that same God can make a difference in me. Am I preaching to somebody? Folk don't just come to church. I wish y'all would help me here. Folk don't just come to church just because it's church. No, they got to see the Jesus in us. And some folk don't want to come in here because they haven't seen a difference in us. This way I'm going to close. I got more. I'm all off my script, by the way, but this is a good way to close. This is a good way to close the sermon. Because I really want to talk to this emerging generation who for some reason don't think they need church and they don't need Jesus. I remember when I was in divinity school, this is why I'm closing. I was in divinity school, I was in seminary school, and we had to read a book called The Slave Religion. It's a wonderful book, anybody who's into it. Dr. Jones, I know you like to read. It's a book called Slave Religion by a fellow named Raboteau. In the book, Slave Religion, what Raboteau talks about, one of the things that really catch my focus is he has this part in the book where he talks about the invisible institution. And the invisible institution, for those who do not know, it was the secret ways in which our ancestors, watch this, would express their faith so that the master could not understand what they were doing, right? And the next moves they were getting ready to make. Case in point, your ancestors didn't have the degrees that you have. Our ancestors didn't have what some of us have, didn't have, Lord have mercy, the internet and all this stuff. You can get on there and Google this and AI did. They didn't have all of that. But they had enough smarts and they had enough inspiration from God to do some stuff to confuse the enemy. Y'all don't know when. I wish I was in a real Holy Ghost church. When you use that kind of word, Lord, confuse the enemy in the apostolic and Pentecostal church, they know what that means. I wish I had a witness in the building. Because they recognize that what they're fighting against in their family is not flesh and blood. But it's powers, y'all, it's spirits, y'all, in high places. Am I talking to somebody? But your ancestors knew how to confuse the enemy. And so you know what they would do? They would do stuff that some of us would call ignorant in today's time. They would be out in the field. This is true story. This is not anything Pastor Keelan Duke is making up. And your ancestors would be out there, that they would hum and they would be moaning. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There they are, out in the field. Mm-hmm. Looking at each other. You know, and you could just have one of them Miss Mamie type members that just run around, right? Just right? And some of us, we would listen to that. That's ignorance. I wouldn't go to a church. Why did they do that? But see, what you don't know is that they were sending signals. It was in their hum that they were saying, meet us down by the river. We're getting ready to get out of here. It was in their hum that there was this liberation there. It was in the hum that there were plans being made. Lord have mercy. And some of us, Lord have mercy, we look at it and we come to church and we still trying to figure out why they do all that. That's why I don't like going to the black church. They just so ignorant. And so we see stuff when folk are running around and doing all that kind of stuff. Y'all see Pastor Duke and them running around. I was watching one Sunday, Lord have mercy, and I don't even know if they knew it. I don't even know if they knew what they were doing or they were saying, well, this is what we're going to do. Our ancestors did that, but they were literally right here at the altar, and it was what they were moving around in a circle. They were moving around in a circle, and I started thinking about a class that I took, and it reminded me of something called the ring shout. Y'all don't know what y'all don't even know when to shout. And so some of us looking, Lord, and we've been to school and we've gotten our doctorate degree, and we don't even know what the ring shout is. And we listening to folk hum, and we listen to that preacher holler and scream, and we don't even know that wasn't done out of ignorance. It was done out of intelligence. I wish I had a witness in the building. But here's what you got to do, young people. Stop criticizing what you don't know and learn some stuff. And if you go back and study why we do what we do, you'll learn that it ain't ignorance, baby. It might be the faith expression that might set you free. All I'm saying is that if it worked for them, it can work for us. Am I preaching to somebody? If Mama and them had to pray, then guess what? It's all right for us to pray. If Mama and them went to church, it's okay for us to come to church. Don't throw it out. Y'all don't help me in the building, but learn how to receive it and welcome it back into your faith expression, because I'm going to tell you this, God is in the business still in this day of using your hum and using your worship and using your faith in order, watch this, to liberate you and in order to take us to new heights and new levels. I promise you I'm sitting down, but can you look at your neighbor and say, neighbor, this next shout, come on, help me preach to him. I promise you I'm going to sit in my seat. Say, this next shout, it's not just for me, but this next shout is for us. This next shout ain't just for me. This next shout is for your family to be blessed. This next shout is for your husband to come to Christ. This next shout is for your sons to come to Christ. Can I get a witness here? I don't know where I'm preaching to, but just maybe, I don't know, but just maybe God is waiting on somebody. God said God is waiting on somebody. God says, I'm waiting on your prayers, because your prayers is going to set your family free. God says, I'm waiting on somebody, and you don't even realize that you're just one shout away. You're just one hum away from me blessing your entire family. Can I get a witness? I know this may sound crazy, but I don't know about y'all, but this next shout, this ain't for y'all. I said this next shout, it ain't just for me, but it's for my family. I'm shouting for my family to be blessed. I'm shouting for my father. I'm shouting that every scheme of the enemy they're trying to destroy my father will not work. I pray that God gives you 90, 100 years. My next shout is for my wife. I pray that everything that God has in store for you, God
God is getting ready to open it up. I pray for my daughter. I pray for my church. Can I get a witness? Is there anybody in here who can testify? I got the kind of faith, Lord have mercy, that wants my family blessed. I don't know who I'm preaching to, but can you do me one more favor and grab your neighbor by the hand? Come on and grab her by the hand and say, neighbor, I'm so glad that you're sitting next to me, because this next shout is me pulling you into your destiny. I'm pulling you into your new dimension. I'm pulling you into your better. Can I get a witness? Somebody shout better. Somebody shout increase. It ain't just for me. Somebody shout it's for us. I ain't humming for y'all. I'm sorry. I'm just sending signals. Come on, just get your hum. Say, yeah. Come on, try to say, oh yeah. There's power in that.
We are so glad that you were a part of our worship experience today. Hopefully something was said or done to bless your life. Thank you once again. Let me just say this, that if you so desire to be a blessing to us and to be a blessing to the work that we do here at our church, we want you to text the word give, G-I-V-E. Text it to this number, 305-693-8323. Your giving helps us to expand the reach here at the New Jerusalem Impact Church. Also, if you want to become a member of our church, you say, man, I really enjoyed that church and I really want to connect with them. You can connect online. Yeah. Here's what you do. You text the word impact, I-M-P-A-C-T, to the number 305-693-8323. Listen, we thank you. If you don't mind, subscribe, follow, come back next week. Can't wait to see you. Thank you once again for being a part of our worship experience.